Hey team, Richard Tubb here with another episode of Tubb Talk, the podcast for managed service providers. Now, you'll know that on this show, we're always looking to shine a light on the best upcoming MSPs in the industry. Our guest today is a UK-based managed service provider who recently won the prestigious MSP Awards by SuperOps in the Emerging MSP of the Year category. Myles Peart is the technical director of the award-winning NetSec, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about their exciting journey. Myles, welcome to Tubb Talk.
Thank you for having me, Richard.
My pleasure. Technically, this is the second time we've spoken. We started to record this interview earlier in the year, didn't we? And then the Northeast, where I live, experienced a massive power outage that kept us offline for about 6 hours. So thank you for your patience.
That's okay. Like I said, I'm looking forward to this one, and we got there in the end, even if it's 6 months later. So
Even if it's six
hopefully it's
months
worth the
later.
wait.
Exactly. I think it will be. So let's start at the beginning then. You're the technical director at NetSec. You're now the emerging MSP of the year for 2025. How does that feel?
Yeah, it feels great. I think business is one of those things where a lot of people don't see the hard work behind the scenes, and there's been lots of sacrifice. And to have that sort of award is just a nice pat on the back, really, to say that we're doing the right things, we're heading in the right direction. And yeah, hopefully more to come, but it certainly feels a sort of monumental one to supercharge us into what's hopefully going to become one of many.
Yeah, I have absolutely no doubt knowing you and watching your journey. I was actually honored I think it's for the third year in a row, I was asked to be one of the judges in the awards. And so I know what it looks like. I see all of the entries from MSPs
Mm.
all over the world. And it really is heartwarming to see what people like yourself and NetSec are achieving in the MSP industry. What did the awards process look like for you to enter, Myles? What was it like from your side as an entrant?
I think it's quite a typical process for us. We had to go through a number of questions, looking at different perspectives of what we've done, what we've achieved, how we're different as a business. So I think when we approach those sort of processes, we try and be as honest and real as we can, and almost accepting that if we don't win, everything in there that we've put in is actual reality. And I think for us, it was nice to put those honest answers in and actually be rewarded for it. But it was quite a simple process. And then beyond that, then there was a joint webinar, which obviously all of the entrants were participating in, and there was a live awards almost ceremony then. So I thought that worked quite well. Obviously, I'm sure there's lots of people maybe across the globe who joined that as well. So it was nice to be part of that and get a little shout out as well.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. A former MSP and owner myself, I know I understand the power of awards like this, not just for the accolades, whatever, however you want to look at it. I don't know how you feel, Miles, but when I used to enter awards with my MSP business, going through the awards process was actually quite gratifying because it gave us an opportunity to look back at what we'd achieved and to verbalize it, to put it out there a little bit more. Did you find a similar process for yourself?
Yeah, you're spot on there. I'm sure a lot of MSP owners can relate. You're always looking at the next thing. It's
Yeah.
always you win a client onto the next, you complete a project onto the next. And yeah, it's a skill I'm always working on myself actually to try and step out of the business and look at what we're doing good, what we're doing bad, and what we can improve on. Yeah, you're spot on there. I think it's a good opportunity to do that and really see all the hard work you've put in, how far you have come, and a lot can change in 6 to 12 months. So it's something we'll continue to do moving forwards as well.
That's really good to hear. I know so many entrepreneurs, MSP owners I speak to, as you say, they're all focused on what's coming next. And there is a danger, isn't there? As soon as you achieve something, a new client, new tool in the business or whatever, you go, that's done, we'll move on to the next without ever
Yeah.
pausing to smell the coffee and go, yeah, we're doing well here. So congratulations again. Let's rewind a little bit though. So we've talked about NetSec. Tell us about NetSec as a company. How many people are there within your business? Where are you based? Who do you work with? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so the company was born in 2019. Since then, when I first started, it was rebranded into NetSec a couple of years later. As a whole, NetSec has been born only for around 3 years now. So a fairly new business. I think we've made a lot of good progress and big strides in that space of time. It took a bit of time to figure out whether we want to be an MSP, whether we want to be a consultancy, and all roads sort of have led to this path. And I think it's meant to be for us as a business. There's seven of us. That's sort of ranging from technical and non-technical staff. And really, for us, we've spent that time trying to figure out what we're going to specialize in. And there's various views on whether you should specialize or should not. And we don't have a specific industry that we target, but for us, we want to become experts in the small to medium business space. For us, we've done a lot of work to try and really understand that industry, and that's where we're heading as a business right now.
Yeah, and remind me, which part of the world are you in? We're in the UK.
We're in Cardiff.
Cardiff in
Um,
Wales there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm from Cardiff. The operations director is actually my wife. She helps me run the business as well, so I'm sure we can touch on that dynamic. But she's
Yeah.
from London, so I'm sure the business will start to venture that way and hopefully beyond. But yeah, the business was born in Cardiff. We have offices there, and we've got a strong client base there now as well.
Yeah, and all credit to you, 3 years in. I know the Cardiff MSP area really well, actually. And there's lots of clients there. There's also lots of MSPs doing great work down there. So all credit to
Mm,
you, Miles, and your wife and the whole team at NetSec for doing what you do in 3 years and to be winning awards. Really super impressive. So
thank you.
the MSP Awards, of course, we mentioned they're hosted by SuperOps, but they're open to any MSP regardless of which platform they use. So I know our listeners are always interested in getting under the bonnet and seeing what's going on. What does the NetSec managed service stack look like? What are the tools that you use there?
Yeah, good question. That's something that has developed over them 3 years, finding out where are those problems. We don't just add software for the sake of adding software. We really want that stack to be value add. For us, we have built on that. We've made some changes, but currently that sort of core offering has stayed in place. So that ranges from full security.
Yeah.
I believe, as far as I'm aware, they're one of the fastest growing cybersecurity companies in Europe. At the time, hopefully they're still in that position because that product for us was a no-brainer. One, it unifies a massive amount of tools, but also they just keep developing the product. So for us, it's great that we can go to our customers and say, they've now added this module and here's the benefit. So yeah, Heimdall Security is the core of the offering. And then around that, we have a password manager, which is with Keeper Security, super simple to use. That's been rock solid for us. Know before for cyber awareness training, sorry, and then also enable Cove for that M365 backup as well. So we do have additional add-ons, things like Exclaimer for signature tooling, Teams calling, etc. But at the core of it, that's the offering. And then obviously around that, there's the sort of managed service support from the team. And we do help with advisory stuff as well on a quarterly basis, and also help companies actually get accredited as well. The likes of Cyber Essentials now is really popular. So yeah, we're trying to get all of our customers as accredited and that baseline solid as possible. And that offering has definitely worked so far.
Yeah, you've got a really solid cutting edge stack there. So I know other MSPs listening are really interested to know what other MSPs are using. So thank you
Mm.
for lifting the hood and sharing on that. Now, you and I spoke via email shortly after you won that award, the MSP Awards. You mentioned you're heavily focused on helping businesses realize the benefits of unification and getting more out of less. I'm really intrigued by that. So tell us more about what that looks like.
Yeah, for us, I think we've realized that a lot of businesses are in that position where either they have a software stack that they're not utilizing, or maybe they have a legacy stack which needs to maybe be modernized, and then we can look at actually reducing what that stack looks like. But yeah, it's a common problem we're seeing, and we it's sourced from a sort of delivery model that we use, which is we want to be one place where you can get everything. Why not let your software do that for you as well? So we're leaning a lot more now into automation as well. AI, I'm sure everyone's aware of. So those things have helped with that. But I think unification really is, I think the main thing I wanted to bring up was how vast Microsoft is.
Oh,
And
yes.
most companies have a Microsoft license, be it business standard, business premium, but outside of the core Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, etc., there's so many other apps that we can make use of, and there's things now like Power Automate, which gives you an element of automation as well throughout that. Things like Copilot can be added on easily, and I think companies are still quite tunnel vision on using those standard
I would
products. So
agree.
Yeah, we're finding more companies are staying on Microsoft for that reason. When we have those conversations, it's opened their eyes to actually we can do a lot more with this and we can get more out of the investment. And that only helps with the partnership between us and them because they can see we're adding that value. But yeah, I would say Microsoft's sort of at the focus of that unification process and conversations we're having at the moment.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head when you said my experience has been speaking to Microsoft MSPs all over the world who use Microsoft products. They tend to have a bit of tunnel vision. It's, yeah, 365, put it in there, and that's that. And that M365 is the beginning of the conversation, in my opinion. It's not the conversation, isn't it? It's so good to see what you're doing, and I think you're so far ahead of the curve in this respect. In fact, I was speaking to Scott Riley, who runs Cloud Nexus, a big Microsoft-focused MSP from the north of England as well, and he's got a very similar attitude. Microsoft 365 is the almost the foundation of the stack, and then you build upon it from there. So, how have the clients found that approach towards it? Were they aware of the options, or was it really eye-opening for them?
Yeah, certainly not. I think most of them were very surprised with how
Yeah,
much it can do. That's one problem in itself, realizing what's there, but then there's a whole other part, which is user adoption,
yeah,
how that then fits into your operation. So it's not a quick process, I would say, if, for people watching where they think, actually, I can start looking at this. It does take time to look at a strategy behind that. And I would always advise speaking to an MSP if you have one, or certainly consulting with one before you make those changes, because what's going to work for a three-person business is going to probably be different for a 50. Yeah, I think definitely those conversations have been positive, though. I think people are open to that change if they can see that they can get a better return on investment. But some want to make it happen quicker than others. And I would say it's finding that happy medium of not introducing too much change. And certainly in the small to medium business space, it's very agile. But what we found is sometimes it applies to cybersecurity as well. Don't put too much red tape or change in place, but put enough in place. It's finding that balance is key.
yeah. I think that's really strong advice there. And you mentioned cybersecurity. Cybersecurity clearly very important to you and the team at NetSec, as it is for a lot of the MSP industry. Is that sort of attention cybersecurity something that's been driven by client demand, or are you pushing clients to become more secure yourself?
Yeah, certainly we're pushing that from the front. I think it's something I strongly believe in. It's been there from the start with us, and it always will be. I think we're seeing trends all the time of certain attacks or risks becoming more and more frequent. So I think for us, it's something we can't ignore, and it has to be at the core of the offering. And I think we've done a lot of work over the past few years around user awareness and training, and Know Before has been great for that. We've had lots of great feedback on it in terms of it doesn't take much time out of your day to actually do it. It keeps people on their toes. We even have people forwarding those simulated emails to us saying, is this real or not? And that's the sort of behavior we want. We don't always expect the user to actually know, but certainly from an awareness perspective, we need to keep pushing that. And I think we're responsible for that throughout the SME space. I think a lot of SMEs themselves wouldn't be aware of a lot of the risks that present them. Yeah, as a business, we enjoy that side of things and seeing them mature over time. And some, it's a challenge for us, but sometimes we take on a new SME client and they've never had IT support, they've never had cybersecurity, and we get to go on that whole journey with them then from basic AV, then progressing to EDR, and then looking at the wider stack. But yeah, it's everyone's at a different point in that journey, and for us, it's trying to be experts at all those different stages and understanding where they need to be pushed, where they need to make those investments. And the stack we have is great, but you can never have too much, and it's always looking at what can we do next. And it's not always tooling either, it's processes, people, and the technology all comes together.
Yeah, and again, another great example that you've shared there of that unified approach towards things. It's not just the tools. You talk about the people, and that cybersecurity is only as good as the weakest human in that link actually is probably the best way to look at it. So love how you're using know before, and for any MSP listening or watching, don't rely just on the tools itself. Go out and get some education for your end users as well, because it's absolute. My experience has been it's an absolute time saver, but also increasingly profitable as well, because the how it reduces your cost of supporting the clients. Yeah,
Mm.
it's much better that the client avoid making a catastrophic error than you trying to clear it up afterwards. Yeah, very important. And I've observed that from I've watched your business, not in a creepy way, Miles, just a casual observer, how NetSec are huge on strategic alliances. Now, not just with technology companies and vendors, but I've seen all manner of innovative relationships that you've got going on there. So tell us more about some of the business relationships you've built and how they've worked for you. And I'm thinking, I remember seeing Legal News Wales, for instance, was one of
Mm.
them in there, but that's just one. Tell us about your sort of strategic alliances you've built.
Yeah, they've been really important for us in our sort of growth journey, and but I think really getting an understanding of different industries, and again, go into that user level and understanding how people think who are non-technical, and it's very different to what us techies think, and
Oh, yeah.
that's a constant work on for us is how can we understand those people, but layer on a technical approach on top of it to get good outcomes. So, yeah, those partnerships have been key. It's something that we feel like is important for the business to continue growing. So, for example, the Legal News Wales one, we work with those guys and did a range of webinars, roundtable talks, and what comes out of those is fascinating. It's, for example, we recently did one with those guys and looking at what problems are in the legal tech space. And a lot of what came out of that was, again, a lack of unification. So really, the problems that we see as an MSP of we want to have those tools which unify like Heimdall, where there's 10 tools in one. We want that. The users actually want it as well for their everyday
Yeah.
use. And how AI has almost disrupted that industry, but also realizing that it's not going to maybe have the impact immediately that people thought, and a lot gets said online. So it's really getting to the user level to understand what the reality looks like. And a lot of now I can see there's openings for software companies to go into that industry and really make a big impact. We're not a software company, which is slightly annoying, which I can see a lot of opportunity there, but just to hear that, and it's not always cyber related. A lot of it is software related, and obviously software is huge now. Some other partnerships as well. I think for us, education and giving back is a big part as well. And the reason for that is that's something I'm personally passionate about. I didn't go down the most traditional route to get to where I am today. So for me, giving back to the education system and the community is really important. We're a cyber first partner. For anyone who doesn't know, cyber first is backed by the NCSC, and it's designed to help universities, schools, and really channel people into the cyberspace or understand what career paths are available to them and really nurture that talent coming out of the education system into the industry. And I think that's super important because for me, as a leader, I've realized those partnerships allow you to see those individuals where you think actually that was maybe me 10 years ago and I wish I had that guidance and reality check of these are actually the options and you don't have to maybe go to university immediately. So it's been great to have those partnerships to be able to have live talks, do webinars, write blogs around my journey and really see the next generation coming through and what talent they bring in and maybe they'll end up at NetSec one day as well. We've had opportunity to do things like work experience, have graduates with us for a couple of months, and that's been great because we're a young vibrant company and we want that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's going to be young in the company, but certainly it's ones to keep an eye out for the future and see where they're heading and give us that exposure to that talent and share what we're doing and hopefully inspire them as well.
Yeah, I'm so impressed with what you're doing, and I grew my MSP business, then sold it, and this is my way of giving back to the industry. So what I see you doing, supporting education, I absolutely love it, Miles. So carry on doing that. And I will say, as a side note, I know your background. I went a similar path, the non-traditional path of getting into
Mm.
the industry. Kudos to you for doing that as well. I also want to raise like something that I bang the drum about quite a lot on this podcast, on the show, and that I think that I observe the most successful MSPs in the world, like yourself, what they do, they focus on core competencies and then build up strategic alliances with people who provide complementary services almost around a spoke of a wheel. Again, brilliant for doing that rather than just saying, no, we don't do that to clients, building up all of those things that you can do outside your core competency. Really impressive. And I think you're reaping the rewards of that. I've been observing that. Keep up the good work. I think it's a great example, a great way for you to grow, but a great example for the community as well. Awesome work there. And talking to the
Thank you.
community, let's talk about customer service. So I hear customers saying really lovely things about you. What is the secret to that? What's the NetSec approach to retaining clients and keeping them happy?
Mm.
What do you do there?
I think it's quite a simple answer, which sometimes you can overcomplicate these things, but I think just being people and understanding people, and it's quite easy to hide behind the tech.
Yeah,
And I think for us in the offering, we have sessions where we sit down with a client, we actually understand the technical challenges, but also the non-technical challenges. And through those conversations, you build relationships. And I think it's understanding that they're not going to be perfect and you're there to help them. And you're just trying to get them from A to B, B to C, and so forth. So I think those conversations have been at the heart of that. But I think customer service then has to be ingrained from the top down. So for us, when we hire people, that has to be a non-negotiable and something that will never turn a blind eye to and allow people not to deliver that, I think. And we've hired some great people over the last few months. And I think that's really highlighted because then they start getting good feedback. And I think as a business, we're trying to work towards, as founders, we're obviously very passionate about the business and we convey the messaging and build those relationships probably the best. But we can't do that forever. So it's
yeah.
almost for us trying to find people who almost do that better than us to come into the business. And that's the approach we're taking. And we've seen great results from that recently. But yeah, it's quite simple. I think people buy from people, and that's a saying everyone uses. And I hate to be cliche about it, but it is very much true. And yeah, for us, there's no sort of silver bullet to that. It's just understanding people, helping them progress. And when they can see that progress, they see this value add, and that partnership just improves.
Yeah, I'm very reminded of a great friend of mine and has been on the show before. David runs an MSP based up in the Manchester area, Rochdale area called Pages, and he's done exactly what you're on the road to doing, which is building that culture, customer services, putting people first within the business, and that includes the customers there as well as the staff and that, and it reaps its own rewards. But it's not an overnight thing, and so glad
Mm.
to see that you're getting the positive feedback from clients already on what you're doing there, and it's really heartwarming to see because it benefits everybody, not only your own
Mm.
staff but clients and the wider business community as well. Again, keep up the great work that you're doing there. Something else I wanted to draw attention to, I know you've got a lot of experience with successfully delivering projects. Now, most MSPs listening are going to be like, projects, ugh. Yeah, project management is something that a lot of MSPs find really challenging in my experience. So, what's the secret to success with projects?
Yeah, I think projects is something we do perhaps less of now, but certainly in the early phases of the business where we were figuring out and almost an in-between of an MSP and a consultancy. We was doing a
Yeah,
lot more project stuff then. And I think for us, it's not compromising that attention to detail. And when we approach a project, you have those challenges of a customer may want to get it done quickly, but we've always taken the approach of let's do it properly from the start to set you up for a future of success. And those projects where you do rush them or you maybe take shortcuts. From my experience, they never end well or that
yeah.
return on investment is poor. So yeah, personally, that's my view on it in terms of be super detailed, take your time, and really make the correct decisions at the start rather than midway through or the end of the project where it's almost too late. From that is when you're choosing that or doing the vendor selection, when you're doing the design, when you're looking at how the solution should be built, all of those key stages, yes, it takes time and many conversations, but honestly, that blueprint for me is anyway has always set us up for success. And again, another key thing is documentation. When you do
Oh yeah.
projects, document absolutely everything. And nobody likes documentation, but the client will thank you and your support team will thank you. When that then goes into BAU and you need to maybe reverse engineer or improve things, it's so key. And that's something we've taken approaches with internal projects as well. Nothing is done without documentation. So yeah, I'm very strict with that one. But yeah, as a whole, we've done projects ranging from small, medium, and large, and the same challenges do reappear, whether it is a different size project, but also the outcomes are often quite different, whether it's a large business or small business. But ultimately, projects are put in place to have impact to the business, and really you can't execute a project well before you determine that at the very start. So yeah, those initial conversations are super important, and we're working on some super exciting stuff at the moment. And you do see, unfortunately, environments you pick up along the way, haven't had the most love over the years from maybe previous MSPs or the client themselves, and quite often you do inherit a bit of a mess, and that's sometimes just a given, and it's how you can transform and turn that around, which is important. And those steps I just talked about have been key to that.
Yeah, I love that approach, and it mirrors my start in the industry. Documentation, get information out of your head, get it down into
Mm.
systems process. As you say, like nobody really enjoys doing it, but it is so powerful, and it separates the great from the good sort of thing. Again, super impressed with what you're doing there, and we've alluded to a lot of the sort of your background prior to NetSec. So tell us a little bit more about that. I'm intrigued. Where did Myles come from? How were you built? How did that work prior help you prepare for the life of a managed service provider?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I think I've probably not shared this enough, and it's been a busy few years of head down and trying to get things to work. But it's nice to have the opportunity to share where it all started, really, and where that was. I was in sixth form. I did the first year of sixth form, and then an opportunity came up for an IT apprenticeship. And for me at that time, I was doing IT at my A levels, but it wasn't always a huge passion of mine, really. My dad was in software engineering, and I was then nearing the decision of do I go to university or do I look at alternative paths? And we had a conversation one day, and my dad said, "Why don't you just have a look at this PC?" And at the time, it was a desktop. Those huge towers, you can take the side off and look inside. And from that point, that's what really captured me. He was talking about the motherboard, the different components on there. And actually, when I did then go on to apply for the apprenticeship, it was a multi-stage process, and one of the sort of questions were around the motherboard and the different components. So actually, it did in the end become useful that without realizing. But yeah, anyway, long story short, there was around 200 people applied for that, and two people were chosen. So I was one of them, and that's something I'll always be proud of. At the time, I didn't have any IT experience, so I guess getting that opportunity was off personality and doing the right things on the day. But yeah, that's where it all started. I spent 4 or 5 years there, really getting some key exposure, to everything in IT, help desk, servers, networking, security. And at the time, I think security wasn't as big. So again, that
Yeah.
was never really a path I was sold on going down. And yeah, I landed in the networking space, and for me, that's where the sort of passion was. A real steep learning curve. I remember the days of when I had to approach the Cisco CCNA and looking at the two ICND 1 and 2 books, which were probably this wide
Whacking
each.
great tomes, giant tome. You don't want to drop them
Yes.
on your foot. You would have known about it.
Yeah, and yeah, I had to pick them up, and there was long days, late nights, weekends of trying to understand that concept literally from zero, and that was a process in itself. And looking back after 1 or 2 years, you think, oh, I understand networking, and looking back, I really didn't. It's probably taken 7, 8 years really to understand the fundamentals and move on to that sort of SME point. And yeah, I met an individual when I was there on a project. I started getting that responsibility to run with some bigger projects, and I met a consultant at the time. And being completely honest, we was working in parallel on the project, and money came up in that conversation, and I almost had a penny drop moment of, you're doing the same job as me, earning probably 3 times as much. What am I doing wrong here? And I'm not ashamed of saying that. I am motivated by money, and hence I have a business, and I'm not going
Yeah.
to shy away from that. So yeah, we got talking, and I ended up taking the leap at that point. I was quite young at the time as well, but took the leap to apply for some consultancy roles as a contractor and landed one. And that was again a huge step up for me, a huge platform. And I had then from that point an abundance of exposure. I ended up probably doing 10 different contracts over the next few years, 6 to 12 months gigs where doing various project work. And at the time, I didn't actually realize it, but probably building up quite a strong network of people as well at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually realize that until reflection. And we actually still work with some of those companies now, and they're quite large companies as well, and probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that as quickly as we have. So that was also a sort of a nice part of the journey to look back on and see how beneficial it's been. And then, yeah, I got to a point where COVID hit, and you see online a lot of stories around COVID hit, and some businesses went downhill, some went to the moon. And for me, I saw this unique opportunity, and again, it's not something I've shared much, but yeah, it's nice to be able to have this chat about this and almost look at the reality of people's journeys. It sometimes takes to do the stuff that most people won't do to get to where you
Yeah.
want to be, and where we're at now, we've never taken investment. I've never had a leg up. Everything's been driven from myself, bootstrapping the business, getting it to where it is. And yeah, COVID hit and everyone started working remotely. Keen me thought, actually, I can take on more work here. And the industry, I've never understood this, but the industry has never liked contractors doing multiple contracts at once. I, I can see it. They want that commitment, but from a young, hungry person, I think you can take on so much more and push yourself. And I did, and I ended up working 4 different contracts throughout that COVID period, which is pretty unheard of, to be honest. I don't know if you've heard of anyone who's done that,
No,
but
no.
yeah, I was bold in doing that. And that was really then the sort of capital that I needed to start a business. And that was the natural next step. I felt like I can't push myself anymore. There's only me here. So the next step is to actually start to build out a team and a business that runs, and that's not fully reliant on me. So that's where we headed. And then NetSec was born, and my wife well, now is my wife. She wasn't at the time, was playing professional sport, and that was coming to an end. And she started that journey with me as well from the start, which was nice because she remembers what it was like then versus now, and we reminisce on that sometimes. But yeah, that's the journey to date anyway, in a capsule, and hopefully many more to come. But yeah, the reality is not always what people think, I've gathered.
It's an amazing story. All credit to you. I was so blown away from when I first heard your story to where you are at the moment. And the thing that impresses me the most, Myles, is knowing where you came from. So many people who are listening to this show, myself included, got into the techie side of
Mm.
IT, and it's like that sparks the interest. But you're unlike a lot of MSP owners who have understood when you've got the business, you built the business there, you understand that it's about the people, it's about the business, it's not necessarily just about the tech, but you retain that love of technology. So I think it's such an impressive story, such an amazing story. I've got to ask though, I see this with other MSPs who perhaps get drawn into the world of business and then forget about the tech almost. You don't seem to be doing that. So, how do you keep a handle on this really rapidly moving pace of change with technology? Are there any sources you go to? How do you keep on top of things?
Yeah, I think it's a great question and something you're always battling with. You get drawn away from the tech because the business has its demands. But for me, really, it is a passion of mine. I can't help that, and I do lean into opportunities where we start a project and I'm involved in those earlier stages. I still do consultancy and guidance to all of our customers, really, and that will change over time, inevitably. Where we're at now and the size we're at, I can still have that exposure. I do a lot of internal training with the team, and so I'll do my own learning and research outside of the business in my own time to do that. But I also then help train our customers as well. So again, I'm maybe not necessarily fixing things as much anymore, but certainly from a coaching perspective, I've enjoyed that. And recently we had some work experience students with us. Again, you forget how much back to the basics you have to go and remember those things, and just keeping your toe in a little bit with those opportunities that come up really help keep the memory refreshed. And I think for me, all the sort of years of hard work prior, you don't lose that sometimes. You
Yeah.
may need a refresher here and there, but yeah, I've managed to retain a lot of it. And yeah, there's going to come a point where I think that won't be the case. And I will have to step back from that and focus on moving the business forward and maybe stepping into a different position. But I'm all about equipping our team with those skills and knowledge so they can eventually replace me, and I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I love it. When's the last time you took the side off a PC and had a look inside or did something?
Wow, good question. I think it was actually maybe a few months ago. Another client of ours who were at the same office space as us, they had a Dell Power Edge, which obviously is not a PC, but a server for anyone listening.
Yeah.
I had to take a little look at that. I was passing the office and they said they were having some issues and there was some noise coming out of it. So I popped to the side off and had a little look. But yeah, it's not very often, to be honest, but sometimes I like to touch a bit too much. And if it comes to networking, certainly when things are being built, I'm taking a look at it and yeah, getting a little bit too involved, so I need to rein myself in sometimes.
You and me both. I used to get told off by my engineers back in the day when I did it, but I've got to say, it's like you said, it's a bit like muscle memory. It doesn't matter how much the tech changes. You take the side off a PC, even to today, and you're like, you know that what the different components are, even if the
Mm,
dynamics, the shape and size have changed. I would say as well, Miles, what I've observed is your engineers might tell you off for getting involved. Actually, it shows them you're leading and you're still keeping on top of things. When I ran my MSP business, I still did the CCNAs and all of that sort of stuff, even though I wasn't doing any of the technical work, just to say,
mm,
hey, I can still do this if needs be. So, plus, as
mm.
you say, we love it. We're techie geeks. We love this stuff anyway, don't we?
Yeah,
Let's,
I like to say, sorry, just to
yeah,
jump in
please.
there quickly. It's one of those, I think the approach I've taken to date is I don't want to ask anyone in the business to do things I haven't done myself. And I think that's really important. And a lot of the time, actually, techies who join us are quite surprised at how happy to be hands-on or to help them with things. And maybe at a bigger business, they're not used to that. But yeah, it's certainly one of got the t-shirt, I've been there, done it, and I want to use that experience to help other people, and
Yeah.
sometimes that does mean getting involved. So, yeah, I do enjoy it secretly.
Well, not so secret anymore, but you should do as well. Let's talk about one of the unsung heroes of the business. You've already alluded to her a couple of times. Your wonderful
Mhm.
wife. She's been a big part of this journey as well. Let's give her a name check. And what part does she play in the business?
Yeah, so my wife's name's Anna, and she is our operations director. Again, not probably your traditional story and entry into the IT space, but yeah, she is an unsung hero, and I've not been forced to say that, I promise. But she's done so much hard work in the background, and I related to if you're into rugby, there's positions on the field which people don't really see the work they put in, but without those, you really wouldn't be able to have those glory moments. And she's certainly that. Backgrounds come from professional golf, and her whole family have done professional sport. So, yeah, quite unique. And for me now going forwards, if someone has done sport to a high level, they are an A-star candidate for us as a business. And everything can be taught, and she's almost proved that as well. She came into the business not knowing a single thing about tech. This week, she's trying to automate processes using Zapier and Power Automate. It's come that
Ah,
far. She's looking at every part of the business and going, we can automate that. How can we do that better? How can we streamline it? And that's probably in the space of 3 years. So I think those people with sporting background, if they are watching this, yes, the IT space can be scary. There's lots of tech and jargon and complexities, but with that sort of work ethic and drive and motivation, you really can grasp it and do very well. Again, I think it suits a lot of people going into sales positions as well. You know, the two are very in parallel in terms of the challenges, and certainly business as well. If you're a sports person and want to start a business, that entrepreneurial side is very similar to sport. Lots of highs, lots of lows, and you have to be resilient to get through that. And there's no silver bullet to that, and that's what she's had to do to date. And yeah, I couldn't run the business without her at the moment. And yeah, I'm pleased to have her on my team, that's for sure.
Yeah. How long have you been married and what's the dynamic like within the business? Do you find that do you take the business home with you or have you got strict rules around that?
Yeah, certainly in the early days, I'm not going to shy away from that. It was a little bit difficult to find where that balance is. Luckily, she joined from the start. Hopefully, that sets us up for a future of success now. But yeah, we have that balance now, which is good. But it certainly was difficult. And at the start, it was initially my passion. So I was probably talking about it a lot more. Now she's probably just as bad as me. And we both have to say enough's enough. And there's times where we work late or work weekends. And we do help each other in those difficult times. And I think for me, and a lot of people would say, how do you work with your wife? And that's something we get all the time. But for me, the biggest thing is you both get it. You're both on the same mission, the same path.
Yeah.
You see what goes on behind the scenes. So when you have those difficult days or you take that loss, they understand it. Whereas if they were just working a standard corporate 9 to 5, I really think it would be a difficult dynamic, and everyone's different and personalities are different. But yeah, for us, I'm just so glad that she gets it because the reality of it is not always as glamorous as people think.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. I think you're an amazing individual, Miles. And what I've learnt about amazing individuals like yourself is there's always people behind who've helped build you. Obviously, your wife, Anna, being one of them. Are there any other coaches, mentors, influences on you that you would give a shout out to as help inform who you are today?
Yeah, I think actually I'm one of those people who quite self-motivated. I know what I want to achieve and I know what I need to do to get there. But certainly there's people who've been influential in the journey to date, and sometimes people who are probably initially not as obvious, but even just going back to when I was younger, 16, 17, I was surrounded by friends who had parents who were in business and really built businesses up from the ground up. And I was exposed to a lot of that. So probably a shout out to them. I have had different sort of business coaches and mentors, and I'll be honest, there's no, again, silver bullet to that. Not everyone
Sure.
you're going to speak to is going to give you words of wisdom, which, is going to solve all your problems. But what I will say is every coach you have, I'm sure you can take some benefit from it. And it's difficult because there's coaches out there who maybe have had their success and maybe gone on to do various things and others which they haven't. And it's sometimes difficult because no one can be in the same shoes as you. You're in
Yeah.
your own unique situation. So what I will say is definitely be open to that, but also just realize there's no quick fix, and that's business in general. There's no shortcut to the success. And yeah, I've definitely spoken to some coaches who've really allowed me to realize I need to step back from the business and allow the business to work for me rather than me work for the business. And those perspectives are really important, especially if you want to go on to sell the business and remove
Yeah.
yourself, etc. They're key lessons, and unless sometimes it's validated with someone externally, it's quite hard to get in that frame of mind. And I've been in times where I'm stuck in the weeds of the business and it's frustrating, but you can't run before you can walk. And those conversations help you realize it's not a sprint. It's a marathon and it will take time. And it's those conversations. It's not always about the tech, which are important.
Again, it's so powerful to have coaches. And I'd say coaches, as you said, because you learn so much from an individual, but then there's a time to move on and learn some more from somebody else. And that I've always had coaches throughout my entire life, even to this
Mm,
day. And some people are like surprised, oh, why have you got a coach
mm,
now? You never stop learning. You absolutely never stop
mm,
learning. And in those early days of growing business, I think a coach is more important than ever. So for
mm.
anybody listening to this, I would do what Miles is doing and seek out people that you can learn from because it gives you an alternative perspective. And the other thing
Yeah.
is, it can be really lonely running a business, can't it? I know you've got your wife to help
Mm.
shoulder the load, but having a coach is a great external perspective.
Yeah, massively. It's nothing to be ashamed of, and business is difficult, and you need those people to support you. You can't do it on your own. And also, as well, if you do run a business with your wife, it's also good to have that separation and speak
Yeah.
with someone else. They will definitely see things differently. But also, just lastly, to add to that, really, is a big part of what I've realized the last few years is how important health and well-being is when you do
Oh,
run a business.
yeah.
So I have had coaches around trying to improve things like diet, sleep, exercise, and how those things come together to create a positive arc in terms of how you deliver peak performance. And again, that's been from coaches which have been in professional sport, and they have been very influential in making me realize how I can manage those stresses. And it's constant high pressure. You have to deliver and step up, and you are that funnel for the business. And we're all human, and that can take its toll. So, yeah, certainly business coach is important, but I would also be open to a sort of health and performance coach as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you mentioned your wife's background in sport, and you said there's no shame to have a coach. Obviously, there's absolutely no shame to have it because all top level sports performers
Mm,
have coaches and that. So why we don't take that same attitude in business and even in personal life as well sometimes surprises me. But again, kudos for you for going down that path. I'm also intrigued, Miles. Who is Myles Peart outside of NetSec? What do you do to let your hair down, to relax? Do you have hobbies? What does that look like?
mm. Yeah, I think I'm quite a simple individual, to be honest. The business is complex, and I think outside of that, it's almost the most basic things that fulfill me. And I've always been into sport. I spend quite a lot of time now playing golf. Love going on holidays and seeing the world. Again, I think that's probably an overlap with business of different parts of the world, and it gives you a different perspective. And that has definitely helped to date with the business and looking at how other people are maybe doing things across the other side of the globe, and it's always different. And I find that fascinating. And yeah, really just spending time with family is really important for me. I'm working on that, of how I can be present with my family while also building the business. Again, that's another challenge a lot of people have. Where is that off switch? It's never probably truly there, but again, something to always manage. And I have spoken with coaches around that stuff as well, and we've done a lot of good work to improve that stuff. And that's been definitely a passion of mine. And your self-improvement as well, going like this week and next week, actually. Of course, business is a passion, so it overlaps with my personal life, but taking time out of the business and going to events is something I'm really passionate about. So I'm going to Ideas Fest later this week, which is a festival for entrepreneurs, lots of fireside talks and actually talks about health and wellness as well. Then the following week, I'm going to a guy called James Sinclair,
Yeah.
business masterclass in London. It's investing in yourself and going to those things, and they're not always the cheapest of things, but for me, it's taking time out to spend personal time, but also coming back with lots of new ideas, and again, that then helping the business. So yeah, I'm a big believer in invest in yourself as well.
Oh, I could not agree more. And while you were talking about that, I'm reminded of some of the great and the good in our industry. Nigel Moore, the illustrious leader of the Tech Tribe, talks openly about how he invests heavily in his own personal development and that, and you can see the benefits of that. But so many people in our space who have followed the path that you're on and reap the rewards of it. But I'm absolutely in awe of what you're doing, Miles. I think it's incredible what you're building with the NetSec business. You and your wife is just amazing, and you've achieved such great success already. What advice would you give to your peers, MSPs who are listening, on becoming an award-winning MSP as you've done?
I think the some of the key things that sort of comes to mind really is be relentless in being better. I think it's quite easy to become complacent, especially when maybe the business is going well, you're in a good patch, you're growing, you're winning customers. But sometimes, that's not enough. And in your head, it's whether you're working towards selling the business or getting the business to a certain point. The long term, how you see the business, maybe how someone else would view it is not in the same way. I think be relentless in every little improvement you can make, try and make it, because that's going to give you all the chances in the possible further down the line to maybe sell it or have a great business operating. And another thing is focus on internal just as much as external. Winning clients is great, but how the business runs is a completely different ball game. How it can work without you, how streamlined it is, how many processes you've got, are they documented, are the team trained up on those? All of those things internally contribute massively to a business success. And We've done a lot of work on that, and it's difficult as a small business because nothing's going to be perfect. Everything's a bit scrappy and you're figuring things out, and that's just startup life. And it's being okay with things not being perfect. But put those projects in place. We're doing one at the moment, looking at all the different areas where we can automate and streamline things. And once you open that can of worms, you realize, wow, this could go on for a long time. And that's completely normal, and that it's okay to not be perfect. Yeah, definitely do work internally as much as externally. And also, I think lastly, from an entrepreneurial perspective, just be you. I think it's quite easy to shape into what your customers want, what your team want, but ultimately you're the driver of that business. So stay true to yourself, be you. Obviously, there's learnings to be had, and naturally you have to change to make things work. But yeah, always stay true to your core values, and really, people will, if they want to work with you, they at least then they're working with you for you rather than what they want. And the people who then work with you in that capacity tend to stay with you long term because you stay true to yourself and they value you for what you are rather than what they would maybe want you to be. So yeah, I think that's my words of wisdom for today.
Yeah, Miles, this has been an absolute treat for me, as I'm sure it has been for our listeners as well. Such an amazing individual, such a wonderful story you've got. All the success you're experiencing at the moment is absolutely due to you. So I can only see bigger and better things in the future for NetSec. And I know there's going to be people listening to this. This conversation is going to strike a chord. They're going to want to continue the conversation with you. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for to find you online?
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words and also the opportunity as well. For us, it's great to share what we're doing, but also me personally, I'm a big part of the business and I want people to know who I am and definitely reach out. If you do want to reach me, you can go to our website, netsec.org.uk, either get in touch through there, phone, email, I'm happy to chat, or it's just Myles Peart on LinkedIn. You can find me a DM, and yeah, more than happy to chat. And that's something I'm big on is helping others. I'm not afraid to share this knowledge. If you can take that and go on to do great things, that's amazing. And I feel like very fulfilled and happy I can do that. So yeah, hopefully people take value from this conversation and also more than happy to help in the future.
Yeah, Miles, you are a rock star, my friend. Thank you for coming on the show and speaking so openly and honestly about your journey. I'm in awe of what you're achieving there and wishing you all the best for your future. Miles, thanks so much.
Thanks again, Richard. I appreciate it.
Cheers.